know what mindful awareness is, at least, as I say, one person's paradigm. You also know that mindful awareness, concentration, sensory clarity, equanimity are cultivatable skills. That's an enormous discovery. So that these skills exist is a huge discovery. That any human being who wants to, who's willing to allocate a reasonable amount of time and energy, can cultivate these skills. That's the cultivatability of these things is utterly extraordinary. And this is the great contribution of Asia, to have discovered systematic ways to cultivate these things. And specifically India. Give credit where credit's due. Indic culture developed this like no other culture ever did. Science arose in the West. It's a real Western thing. It now belongs to the whole world. The systematic ways to cultivate concentration power, sensory clarity, and equanimity arose in India. Now they belong to the world. That this is cultivatable and cultivatable to whatever extent you need it. This would be the gospel, I would say, of Buddhism. If there's gospel meaning the good news, well, there's the Christian version of what the good news is. The Buddhist version of the good news is anybody who really wants concentration, clarity, and equanimity can have as much of it as they need. If I had to put it in a phrase, if somebody said, why practice mindfulness? I would say for total happiness. That phrase, total happiness, which for me is a technical term. It's a technical term, highly technical term. Now, to call it happiness, some people might object that that sounds frivolous. However, in point of fact, the Buddhist greeting in the Pali language, the language that is closest to the Buddha himself, is Sukhihotu, which is usually translated, may you be happy. But actually, if you look at it grammatically, it's not may you be happy, it's may happiness be. It's a third person singular imperative. May happiness be. Of course, implying to you, but to everyone. It's universal happiness. Enlightenment, in the sense of nirvana or nibbana, was referred to by the Buddha as ditta dhamma sukha vihara. Ditta dhamma means in the here and now. Sukha means, in this case, we could translate happy. And vihara means abiding. Abiding in happiness in the here and now was the Buddha's reason to do this practice, what he promised that people would have. So it's not ridiculous to define happiness as a technical term and then sort of look at that. So if you ask the average person, what makes you happy? What do you mean by happiness? The first answer you'll probably get is something like this. I'm happy when I get what I want. What they're thinking of primarily is, I'll be happy when I get the conditions that I want. Objective conditions. Ordinary people, what are the things that they would want to get that would make them happy?
Security.
Security.
Sex.
Sex. Good sex. Relationships. Health. Good weather. Good job. A job.
Some people want money.
Money.
Recognition.
Reputation, recognition, fame, power, good family life, personal freedom, freedom of expression, food to eat, water to drink, air to breathe, vitality, strength. We covered it. Probe a little deeper. Well, people are thinking, get objective conditions that I want. Well, I use the word objective conditions, circumstances. It's not just that we want to get certain things, we also want to avoid certain things. Get a good reputation, but we want to avoid being shamed. We want to avoid all the opposites of the good conditions. If you had certain good conditions but couldn't avoid certain other bad conditions, then you wouldn't be happy. So there's also the notion of get conditions I want and avoid conditions I don't want. For example, I'll be happy when I have a good job and my sister doesn't bug me anymore. Okay. If we analyze a little bit more deeply and ask the question, well, how do we even know what our conditions are? The only way that we can know what our objective conditions are is through sensory experience. The parts of sensory experience that that ordinary people call self are their body experience, their physical and emotional sensations, and their mind experience, their visual thoughts and internal conversations, internal talk. So most people would say that I am my body, I am my mind. When we talk about the sensory experience part of happiness, what we get is, I'm happy when I get sensory experiences I want and avoid sensory experiences I don't want, in body, in mind. I have a certain control over my image and talk. There is what might be called a motor component. Thought is something you do, it's an action, it's a form of karma. But from another perspective, thought can be looked upon as a sensory experience, because thought comes to you through a visual means, which is mental pictures, and an auditory means, which is internal talk. So in the West, mental experiences, it's not ordinarily thought of as a sensory experience. But I think it's very important to be able to conceptualize thinking as a tangible sensory experience. Because what's tangible is trackable, and what's trackable is tractable.